good use of his angels. Just like Jesus, David was a man that believed in the reality of angels. David kept the angels so busy that he was able to win every single battle he fought throughout his entire life. David frequently dispatched angels to pursue his enemies. The psalmist wrote that the God of Jacob would protect you, that he will send you assistance from his sanctuary, and that he will remember all of the sacrifices you have made. Some put their faith in horses, while others rely on chariots. However, God will defend those who follow the terms of the covenant. Because God is their defense, even when everyone else is falling, they will continue to stand tall. Psalm chapter 35 verses 4-8. Let those be ashamed and dishonored who seek my life. Let those be turned back in defeat and humiliated who plot evil against me. Let them be blown away like chaff before the wind, worthless, without substance, with the angel of the Lord driving them on. Let their way be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing and harassing them. For without cause they hid their net for me. Without cause they dug a pit of destruction for my life. Let destruction come upon my enemy by surprise. Let the net he hid for me catch him. Into that very destruction let him fall. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. David asked God not only to protect him, but also to vindicate him. He wanted it to be seen and known that he did serve and obey God, and that those who opposed him were made like chaff before the wind. Let the angel of the Lord chase them. For emphasis, David prayed twice for the intervention of God's special messenger, the angel of the Lord. Without cause they have hidden their net for me in a pit. David made this request to God, not once but twice, to drive home the point that his enemies were attacking him for no good reason. David could rightly pray that those who came against him did so without cause. Sometimes God protects his people by sending one of his angels to meet our physical needs. One such story is the story of Hagar in Genesis chapter 21. After being cast out of Abraham's household on account of Sarah and Isaac, we find Hagar and her son Ishmael wandering in the wilderness without adequate water. We can pray on the same principle against our spiritual adversaries, the principalities and powers that battle against us in the spiritual realm. The devil has snares, and he has strategies set against us. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. To keep Satan from taking advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his schemes. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 7. And he must have a good reputation and be well thought of by those outside the church, so that he will not be discredited and fall into the devil's trap. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. Now an overseer must be blameless and beyond reproach, the husband of one wife, self-controlled, sensible, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. We may rightly pray that the devil is caught in and by his own snares and strategies. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 26. And that they may come to their senses and escape from the trap of the devil, having been held captive by him to do his will. David then went on to say this: Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High your dwelling place, no evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels in regard to you, to protect and defend and guard you in all your ways of obedience and service. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you do not even strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and cobra, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. Psalm chapter 91, verses 9 to 13. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place. The principles and promises in Psalm chapter 91, verses 10 to 16, are directed toward those who trust in the Lord, making Him their dwelling place, their source of life and satisfaction. For He shall give His angels charge over you. This describes another way God may send His protection and care unto His people, through His angels, commanding them to keep and bear up His people. The angels of God shall have an especial charge to accompany, defend, and preserve thee, and against their power the influence of evil spirits cannot prevail. These will, when necessary, turn thy steps out of the way of danger, ward it off when it comes in thy ordinary path. Clark. How angels thus keep us we cannot tell. Whether they repel demons, counteract spiritual plots, or even ward off the subtler physical forces of disease, we do not know. Perhaps we shall one day stand amazed at the multiplied services which the unseen bands have rendered to us. Spurgeon. Let us remember that it is God whose these angels are. He gives them charge. From Him they receive their commission. To Him they are responsible for their charge. From God thou art to expect them, and for their help, He alone is to receive the praise. It is expressly said, He shall give His angels charge, to show that they are not to be prayed to nor praised, but God alone, whose servants they are. Clark. For He shall give His angels charge over you. The promise in Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 and 12, was quoted and twisted by Satan in his temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Matthew chapter 4, verses 5 to 7. Then the devil took him into the holy city Jerusalem, and placed him on the pinnacle, highest point of the temple. And he said mockingly to him, If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, to serve, care for, protect, and watch over you. And they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus said to him, On the other hand, it is written and forever remains written, You shall not test the Lord your God. Jesus was tempted by Satan to provoke an artificial crisis by flinging himself from a high point on the Temple Mount. And Satan quoted Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 to 12, as a promise of protection if Jesus were to do this. According to what is written in Matthew chapter 4, Satan's use of Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 and 12 as a citation is a pattern of how he perverts the Word of God. Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 and 12 were falsely quoted because the devil left out the words, to keep you in all your ways. To test God in this way was not Jesus' way. It was not the way of the Savior. God had never promised, nor ever given, any protection of angels in sinful and forbidden ways. Poole. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra. In addition to a general deliverance from harm, the protection that God provides for His people also includes a general giving of victory to His people, even over adversaries as strong as the young lion and the snake. There is another interesting connection with the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. The Lord's trust in His Father also resulted in Satan's defeat, another part of the psalm the devil omitted. Boyce. Psalm chapter 34, verse 7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him and delivers them. Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 to 12. For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. Angels are motivated by an inexhaustible love for God. David says of angels, He who dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Psalm chapter 91, verse 1 and 11-12. Angels were also sent to protect the prophet Elisha and his servant. Let us set the scene. Ancient Aram, now Syria, was at war with Israel, and the king of Aram was troubled that the prophet Elisha was able to predict where his army intended to go, warning Israel's king so that he could develop Israel's army's strategy. The king of Aram decided to send a massive army to the city of Dothan in order to capture God's prophet Elisha and prevent him from assisting Israel in winning the war. The ruler could only make the most basic plan in his tent with Elisha relaying it in detail to the king of Israel, so he could take appropriate countermeasures. Nothing escapes God's notice. He was well versed in the movements of Israel's adversaries. Israel's enemies may have plotted to harm them in secret, but God protected them. The king of Israel made a wise decision by listening to Yahweh's prophet. When Elisha informed Israel's king of the Aramean king's movements, he demonstrated not only Yahweh's power on his behalf, but also to the Aramean king that Yahweh was Israel's protector. God's blessing on his people was both a gift to them and a demonstration to others of who Yahweh is. The Lord revealed so many of the enemy's plans to Elisha that the king of Aram became so enraged that he accused his servants of harboring an Israeli spy. When he discovered that Elisha, Israel's prophet, was the source of his problems, he dispatched horses, chariots, and a massive army to capture him. However, because this was the same prophet who had healed Aram's army commander, he would not be quickly apprehended. 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 8-10. When Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message: "Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman went with his horses and chariots, and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." When Elisha's servant saw the horde of enemy forces encircling their city, he cried out, "Oh, my master, what are we to do?" But Elisha was unconcerned. He saw with faith-filled eyes and declared, "Those who are with us outnumber those who are with them." His assurance here is reminiscent of the Apostle John's exhortation to believers: "The one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world." 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. When we align with God, our adversary is always outnumbered. And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 17. When God's servants are doing His will and doing His work, they are invincible until the task is completed. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 18. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. The Lord answered Elisha's prayer, and his servant saw God's army. Elisha was surrounded by horses and fire chariots. It was a divine protection wall. The divine intervention went so far as to blind the enemy army and allow Elisha to lead them right into Israel's camp. Centuries after God opened the eyes of Elisha's servant, the Apostle Paul wrote that we should prepare ourselves with God's protection.